The cantina buzzed with the voices of a dozen different alien species. Steam rose from cups of various drinks, each one suited to the biology of its drinker. The air smelled of metal, ozone, and something that might have been food to creatures with different stomachs than humans had. Commander HFY clicked his mandibles together in what passed for laughter among his kind. The Xanthari warrior's forearms gestured wildly as he spoke to the mixed group of soldiers gathered around the central table. His black carapace gleamed under the harsh lights, and the scars across his shell told stories of battles on a dozen worlds. "Look at this," HFY said, holding up a small data tablet. "I found this in the human quarters. It contains their old stories, their myths and legends." The other aliens leaned closer. Vexthal, a Vorthak whose crystalline body caught the light like a prism, made a sound like breaking glass. "What kind of stories do the new species tell?" HFY's compound eyes glittered. "Stories about their gods and heroes. But listen to this one. They have a tale about a human child who killed a giant warrior with just a small stone." The table erupted in what counted as laughter for the various species present. Korthine, a Kalani whose blue skin rippled with amusement, slapped the table with one of her 4 hands. "A stone? Against a giant? How stupid do they think their offspring are?" "Wait, there is more," HFY continued, scrolling through the tablet. "They tell stories of humans who could move mountains with their bare hands. Humans who could call down lightning from the sky. Humans who fought monsters the size of buildings and won." Vexthal's crystalline form shifted colors, a sign of deep amusement. "Do they expect anyone to believe this nonsense? My people have legends too, but at least ours involve real power. Technology, energy manipulation, not whatever this is." The Xanthari commander found another file. "Here is one about a human who completed 12 impossible tasks. He fought a monster with 9 heads that grew back when cut. He cleaned stables that had not been cleaned for 30 years in a single day. He held up the sky itself." "Primitives," snorted Korthine. "My ancestors conquered 3 star systems before your species even had spaceflight. Our legends tell of real events. Documented history, not children's stories about impossible humans." A young Vorthak soldier named Silvara leaned forward. "Maybe this is how they cope with being so weak. They tell themselves stories about being strong." The laughter grew louder. Even soldiers from other tables began to listen in. The cantina was mostly filled with veterans from the Coalition's various member species. All of them had fought in real wars. All of them knew what actual combat looked like. "Oh, this one is the best," HFY said, finding another story. "They have a myth about humans who went into a rage so deep that they became unstoppable. These berserkers could not feel pain and would not stop fighting until everything around them was dead." "Unstoppable humans," wheezed Korthine. "Have you seen humans fight? They are small, weak, they break easily. Their skin tears if you look at it wrong." Vexthal's color shifted to deep blue, indicating serious thought. "I fought beside humans in the border wars. They are adequate soldiers, but they are nothing special. They follow orders. They use their weapons properly. But unstoppable? Hardly." The conversation was interrupted by the soft hiss of the cantina's entrance door. A young human in Coalition uniform stepped inside. He was small even by human standards, with brown hair and nervous eyes. The rank insignia on his sleeve marked him as Private Chen, one of the newer recruits. Private Chen moved toward the bar, but his steps slowed as he heard the laughter and caught fragments of the conversation. His face reddened as he realized what the aliens were discussing. "Hey, human," HFY called out, his translator making his words sound friendly despite his predatory appearance. "Come here. We want to ask you about these stories." Chen hesitated, then walked over to the table. The aliens made room for him, their expressions a mix of amusement and curiosity. "Sit down," Korthine said, gesturing to an empty chair. "We have been reading your species' mythology. Very entertaining." Chen sat down slowly, his eyes moving from one alien face to another. "What mythology?" HFY held up the tablet. "These stories, about humans who could do impossible things. We want to understand why your people make up such obvious lies." "They are not lies," Chen said quietly. "They are stories, myths. They have meaning." "Meaning?" Vexthal's colors shifted to yellow, indicating confusion. "What meaning can there be in impossible events?" Chen looked uncomfortable. "Well, they teach lessons. About courage. About not giving up. About protecting others. But why make the humans in these stories so powerful?" Silvara asked. Why not make them realistic? I do not know, Chen admitted. They are very old stories. From before we had space travel, maybe people back then needed to believe humans could do great things. This brought another round of laughter from the aliens. So you admit they are false, HFY said. Your ancestors made up stories about powerful humans because real humans were too weak to inspire anyone. Chen's face grew redder. It is not like that. The stories, they represent something true about human nature, about not giving up when things look impossible. Human nature, Corthine repeated, her voice mocking. And what would that be? Getting scared and making up stories about being strong? We do not get scared, Chen said, his voice rising slightly. No? Vexthal leaned forward. Then explain these myths. Why do your people need stories about humans who can fight giants and monsters? Why not just accept that humans are what they are? Chen opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. He looked around the table at the amused faces of the alien soldiers. Each one of them was larger than him, stronger than him, with natural weapons and abilities that humans could never match. The stories are important, he said finally. They remind us that humans can do great things if they try hard enough. Like what? HFY challenged. What great things have humans done? You joined the coalition 50 years ago. You fight in our wars with our weapons following our tactics. What makes you special? Chen struggled to find an answer. In the corner of the cantina, unnoticed by the laughing group, an ancient Kalani warrior sat alone at a small table. General Corvanus had been in the coalition military for longer than most species had been spacefaring. His scarred blue skin and missing tentacles spoke of battles that had become legend. The general watched the scene unfold with dark, intelligent eyes. He had seen things that would break the minds of younger soldiers. He had fought in wars that most coalition citizens did not even know had happened, and he had seen humans in combat. But for now he remained silent, listening to the mockery and watching the young human soldier struggle to defend myths that the aliens could not understand. The laughter continued, growing louder as Chen failed to provide satisfactory answers to their questions. Other soldiers from nearby tables began to gather around, drawn by the entertainment of watching a human try to explain his species' primitive beliefs. None of them noticed the old general in the corner, or the way his eyes never left the struggling young Marine. Private Chen shifted in his seat as more aliens gathered around the table. The crowd had grown from the original 5 to nearly a dozen soldiers from different species. The cantina's noise level dropped as other patrons turned to watch the spectacle. Come now, HFY said, his mandibles clicking in amusement. Surely you can explain why your people need such silly stories. Do humans really believe they once fought monsters? Chen wiped sweat from his forehead. The stories are not meant to be taken literally. They are symbols, metaphors for what? Asked Zethar, a massive Gorvani whose thick hide was scarred from acid burns. What could these impossible tales represent? Well, Chen began, then stopped. He looked around at the expectant faces. The story about David and Goliath, for example. It is about how someone small can defeat someone big if they are smart about it. This brought snorts of derision from several aliens. Small, defeating big. Corthine's gill slits fluttered with laughter. Have you seen the size difference between species in real combat? Small does not defeat big. Big crushes small. This is basic physics. Vexthal's crystalline body shifted to orange, indicating skepticism. If your ancestors wanted to teach about intelligence overcoming strength, why not make the story realistic? Why invent impossible giants? Chen tried again. Maybe the giants were not that big. Maybe the stories got exaggerated over time. Or maybe, Silvera suggested, humans have always been weak and needed fairy tales to feel better about themselves. The crowd laughed. Chen felt his face burning with embarrassment. It is not like that. Humans are not weak. Prove it, challenged a Thorian warrior whose rocky skin made him look like a walking mountain. Tell us about human military victories. Tell us about battles where humans showed this legendary strength. Chen's mouth opened and closed. He had been in the coalition military for only 6 months. His only combat experience was training simulations. He knew humans had fought in coalition battles, but he did not know the details. I cannot name specific battles, he admitted, but humans serve with honor in the coalition forces. Serve, yes, HFY agreed. But do they lead? Do they innovate? Do they do anything that other species cannot do better? Chen looked around desperately. There were 3 other humans in the cantina, but they were sitting at tables on the far side of the room. They had heard the commotion but seemed to be avoiding eye contact, unwilling to join the conversation. Humans are good at adapting, Chen said weakly. We learn quickly. So do most intelligent species, Korthine pointed out. That is not special. Zethar leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the table. Let me tell you about real myths, human. My people have legends about the Great Pack Hunt, when our ancestors surrounded and destroyed an entire enemy fleet. Every detail of that story has been verified by historical records. It really happened. And my people, added Vexthal, have songs about the Crystal Wars, when our ancestors learned to focus starlight into weapons that could cut through planets. We still use that technology today. Our myths are based on reality. The Thorian warrior rumbled agreement. Our legends tell of the Stone Kings who built fortress worlds that could move through space. 3 of those worlds still exist. You can visit them. You see, HFY said to Chen. Real species have real legends about real accomplishments. Your people make up stories about impossible humans because real humans have never done anything worth remembering. Chen's hands clenched into fists. That is not true. Then prove it, Korthine challenged. Tell us one real thing humans have done that matches your myths. One actual event where humans showed this legendary power. Chen struggled to think. He had learned basic coalition history and training, but most of it focused on alien civilizations. Human history was barely covered. Humans survived on Earth, he said finally. Our planet is dangerous. We had to fight to survive. The aliens exchanged glances. Every species fights to survive on their homeworld, Silvara pointed out. That is how evolution works. But Earth is particularly dangerous, Chen insisted. It has predators and diseases and natural disasters. So does every world, Zethar rumbled. My homeworld has acid storms that can dissolve metal. The Kalani homeworld is mostly ocean with creatures that eat starships. The Vorthak homeworld has radiation levels that would kill most species. What makes Earth special? Chen's shoulders slumped. I do not know enough about Earth's history to explain it properly. This admission brought more laughter from the crowd. You do not even know your own species' real history, HFY observed, but you defend their fake legends. The myths are important to human culture, Chen said desperately. They inspire us to be better. Better at what? Asked Korthine. Better at making up stories? The laughter grew louder. Other patrons in the cantina were now openly watching the spectacle. Chen noticed that the 3 other humans had quietly left through the back exit. Perhaps, suggested Vexthal, humans need these myths because they have no real heroes, no actual great deeds to remember. That cannot be true, Chen protested, though his voice lacked conviction. Can it not? HFY scrolled through the tablet again. Look at these stories. Humans who could not die in battle. Humans who could fight armies alone. Humans who could perform magic. These are the fantasies of a species that has never known real power. Real power, agreed the Thorian, comes from technology, strategy, and strength, not from children's stories. Chen looked down at his hands. They were small and soft compared to the armored appendages of the aliens around him. His uniform was standard coalition issue, nothing special or unique about it. His sidearm was a basic energy weapon that any recruit could use. Maybe you are right, he said quietly. Maybe humans are not special. The admission seemed to deflate some of the aliens' amusement. They had expected more of a fight. Do not feel bad, Korthine said, her tone becoming almost kindly. Not every species can be warriors. The coalition needs many different kinds of people. Humans can serve in support roles. Support roles, Chen repeated bitterly. It is an honorable thing, Zethar assured him. Not everyone can be a hero. In the corner of the cantina, General Corvanus continued to watch silently. His ancient eyes missed nothing. He saw the young humans' defeat, the aliens' casual dismissal of humanity, and the way the conversation had turned from mockery to pity. The general had remained quiet through the entire exchange, nursing a drink that had long since grown cold. His presence was so unassuming that most of the soldiers had forgotten he was there. But he was listening to every word, and his expression was becoming darker with each passing moment. The mockery had reached its peak when a voice cut through the laughter like a blade through silk. That is enough. The words were spoken quietly, but they carried such authority that every conversation in the cantina stopped. Heads turned toward the corner table where General Corvanus sat alone. The old Kalani rose slowly from his chair. He was massive even by Kalani standards, with broad shoulders and 4 powerful arms that ended in hands scarred by decades of war. His blue skin was marked with the ritual scars of his people, but underneath those were other marks, burns from energy weapons, cuts from blades, and the puckered wounds that came from projectile weapons. Most striking were his eyes. They were dark and ancient, holding the weight of battles that most soldiers could not imagine. When he looked at someone, it felt like being studied by a predator deciding whether you were worth killing. Every alien in the cantina knew who he was. General Corvanus, hero of the siege of Proxima Station, the being who had held the line at the Battle of the Void Tear when 3 coalition fleets had been destroyed. The only soldier to survive the nightmare wars with his sanity intact, he walked toward the table with slow, measured steps. The crowd of aliens parted before him without being asked. "General," HFY stammered, clicking his mandibles nervously. "We were just educating the human about mythology." Corvanus stopped beside the table. Up close, his size was even more impressive. The scars on his arms told stories of hand-to-hand combat with creatures that should have been impossible to fight. One of his tentacles was missing, cut off clean in some long-ago battle. "Educating," Corvanus repeated, his voice carrying the weight of authority earned through blood. "And what have you taught him?" "We were explaining," Corthine said carefully, "that human myths are unrealistic, that real warriors do not need impossible stories to inspire them." The general's dark eyes moved from one alien face to another. When his gaze settled on someone, they found themselves unable to look away. "I see," he said. "And you believe human myths are false?" "Of course," Vexthal said, though his crystalline form had shifted to a nervous purple. "The stories describe impossible feats. Humans who could fight giants, move mountains, defeat armies. These things never happened." Corvanus was quiet for a long moment. The cantina remained silent, waiting for his response. "I have been in coalition service for 73 years, he said finally. "I have fought in wars that most of you have never heard of. I have seen species rise and fall. I have watched planets burn and stars go dark." He paused, letting his words sink in. "And for the last 32 years I have fought alongside humans." This brought surprised murmurs from the crowd. Humans had only been in the coalition for 50 years, and had only been assigned to frontline combat units for the last 3 decades. "General," HFY said hesitantly, "surely you do not believe these myths are true?" Corvanus looked down at the data tablet that still displayed human legends. His expression was unreadable. "Let me tell you about the Battle of Kepler 186, he said. "It was 12 years ago. A Devourist fleet had taken the system. 3 worlds, 2 billion civilians. The enemy had war mechs, each one 50 meters tall and armed with weapons that could level cities. The aliens listened intently. The Devourer War was still classified, but everyone knew it had been brutal. We had a mixed unit," Corvanus continued. "Zenthari shock troops, Vortak energy specialists, Kalani heavy infantry, and 1 squad of humans." He looked directly at HFY. The human squad leader was Sergeant Martinez, small man, even by human standards. "Barely came up to my waist. When we encountered the first war mech, my tactical computer calculated our chances of survival at less than 3%. "What happened?" Chen asked quietly. Martinez studied the mech for 30 seconds. Then he told his squad to follow him. He ran straight at a machine that weighed 2,000 tons and carried enough firepower to destroy a battleship. The cantina was absolutely silent now. "The mech tried to step on him," Corvanus said. Martinez rolled under its foot, climbed up its leg and planted explosive charges on its knee joint. When the charges went off, the mech stumbled. While it was off balance, Martinez climbed to its weapon arm and disabled the targeting system. Vexithal's colors had shifted to deep red, indicating shock. "That is impossible. The mech should have killed him easily." "Yes," Corvanus agreed. "It should have. But Martinez was too small and too fast for its sensors to track properly. Too unpredictable for its combat programs to counter." He looked around the table at the stunned faces. The mech fell. Martinez and his squad destroyed a weapon of war that should have been unstoppable. They did it with standard equipment and basic tactics. No special technology, no overwhelming force, just intelligence, courage, and the refusal to accept that something was impossible. Corthine's gill slits were fluttering rapidly. "But that is just one battle. One exceptional human. One exceptional human, Corvanus repeated. Shall I tell you about Corporal Washington, who held a bunker against 50 Devourist assault troops for 6 hours while his unit evacuated civilians? Or Lieutenant Singh, who jury-rigged a destroyed starship's engines to ram an enemy dreadnought? The general's voice grew stronger as he continued. Or perhaps you would like to hear about the human engineering team that built a fortress on the surface of a star, or the human medic who walked into a radiation field that would have killed any other species to rescue wounded soldiers. Chen stared at the general in amazement. These things really happened. They really happened, Corvanus confirmed. And they happen every time humans are placed in impossible situations. Your people do not see obstacles. You see problems to be solved. He picked up the data tablet and scrolled through the myths. David and Goliath, he read. A small fighter defeats a giant through intelligence and courage. I have watched humans do this dozens of times. Not against mythical giants, but against real enemies that should have crushed them. HFY's mandibles were clicking rapidly, but the story says David killed Goliath with a single stone. And Martinez disabled a war mech with a few kilograms of explosives, Corvanus replied. The principle is the same. Use the enemy's size against them. Find the weak point. Strike with precision. He found another story. Hercules and the Hydra. A hero fights a monster that grows stronger every time it is wounded. I watched a human squad fight a self-repairing Devourist fortress. Every time they destroyed one section, 2 more sections activated. Do you know what they did? The aliens shook their heads. They stopped attacking the sections and started attacking the repair systems. The fortress could not regenerate what was keeping it alive. Corvanus set the tablet down and looked directly at the group of aliens who had been mocking human myths. Your mistake, he said, is thinking these stories are about the past. They are not. They are about the present. Every day humans perform the impossible and call it routine. Your myths describe what your ancestors did. Human myths describe what humans still do. The silence in the cantina was complete now. Even the background hum of the air recyclers seemed muted. General Corvanus was not finished. He picked up the tablet again and found another story. The 12 Labors of Hercules, he read aloud. Let me tell you about the real 12 labors. They were performed by the human corps of engineers during the Titan campaign. The aliens leaned forward despite themselves. The Titan campaign was legendary throughout the coalition military. Labor 1, Corvanus said. Hercules killed the Nemean lion, a beast whose hide could not be pierced by weapons. The human engineers faced a similar problem on Titan 7. The planet was protected by an energy shield that reflected all known weapons. The shield drew power from the planet's core and could not be attacked directly. He paused, letting the parallel sink in. The humans studied the problem for 3 days. Then they landed on the dark side of the planet and began digging, not toward the shield generator, but toward the planet's magnetic poles. They planted charges that shifted the magnetic field by exactly 7 degrees. Vexthal's crystalline form was flickering between colors. What did that accomplish? The shield used the magnetic field to maintain its shape, Corvanus explained. When the field shifted, the shield developed weak points. The humans then used conventional weapons to exploit those weak points and bring down the entire shield. He scrolled to the next labor, Labor 2. Hercules fought the Hydra, whose heads grew back when cut off. The human engineers faced similar self-repairing fortifications throughout the Titan system, automated defense platforms that rebuilt themselves faster than they could be destroyed. HFY clicked his mandibles nervously. How did they solve it? They stopped trying to destroy the platforms, Corvanus said. Instead, they captured them. They uploaded a virus that made the platforms think they were already destroyed. The platforms shut themselves down and began recycling their own materials. The general continued through the list, each myth finding its match in human military history. Labor 3. Hercules captured the Golden Hind, a deer so fast it could outrun arrows. The humans on Titan 12 faced automated courier ships that could not be caught or destroyed. They moved too fast for conventional weapons and could predict attack patterns. So how did they catch them? Chen asked, fascination replacing his earlier embarrassment. They did not try to catch them, Corvanus replied. They made the ships catch themselves. They broadcasted false intelligence that made the ships think there was a more important target in a specific location. When the ships converged on that location, they flew directly into a gravity trap. Labor by labor, the general matched human engineering feats to ancient myths. The Erymanthian boar became a rogue AI that the humans tricked into deleting itself. The Augean stables became a polluted planet that the humans cleaned using controlled stellar flares. The Stymphalian birds became a swarm of attack drones that the humans turned against each other with hacked command codes. But these are just engineering problems, Korthine protested weakly. What about the myths of human warriors? The stories of berserkers who could not be stopped? Corvanus set down the tablet and looked directly at her. I have seen human berserkers, he said quietly. During the siege of Proxima Station, the Devourists broke through our lines. They were heading for the civilian shelters. There were 10,000 enemy soldiers and only 50 humans in their path. His voice became distant as if he was seeing the battle again. The humans formed a circle around the shelter entrance. They had no cover, no support, and limited ammunition. The Devourists attacked in waves, each wave larger than the last. The cantina was so quiet that the aliens could hear their own breathing. I watched from the command bunker, Corvanus continued. I saw humans fight with wounds that should have killed them. I saw them continue shooting after their weapons ran out of power. I saw them use broken equipment as clubs and throw themselves at enemies twice their size. He paused, his ancient eyes fixed on something the others could not see. The first human fell after 20 minutes. The last one died 3 hours later. In that time, they killed or wounded 8,000 Devourists. The remaining 2,000 broke and retreated rather than face the last few humans. Zetar's rocky hide was pale with shock. 50 humans stopped 10,000 Devourists? 50 humans died stopping 10,000 Devourists, Corvanus corrected. And they did it because they knew that if they failed, the civilians behind them would die. They fought not because they were fearless, but because they were terrified of failing. He looked around the table at the stunned aliens. Your species fight when you have advantages, when you calculate acceptable odds, when victory is possible. Humans fight when they have no choice, when defeat is certain, when victory is impossible. Silvara's voice was barely a whisper. The myths about humans who could not feel pain are not about feeling no pain, Corvanus said. They are about fighting through pain that would stop any other species. Human nervous systems are actually more sensitive than most. They feel everything. They just refuse to let pain stop them. He picked up the tablet one more time. Prometheus stealing fire from the gods, he read. Do you know what this myth really describes? The aliens shook their heads. Humans taking technology from species more advanced than themselves and making it better. In every war, humans capture enemy equipment. But they do not just use it. They study it, improve it, and turn it against its creators. Vexthal was now a deep purple indicating distress. But that is impossible. You cannot improve technology you do not understand. Tell that to the human technician who captured a Devourist quantum disruptor and figured out how to reverse its polarity in 6 hours, Corvanus said. Or the human pilot who stole a Xanthari fighter and discovered how to increase its speed by 30%. He looked directly at HFY. Your own species has lost equipment to human forces. Has it not, Commander? HFY's compound eyes refused to meet the general's gaze. There have been incidents. Incidents where humans not only captured Xanthari technology but improved it so much that your own military had to reverse engineer the improvements. The silence was answer enough. Corvanus stood to his full height, towering over the seated aliens. You mock human myths because you think they describe the impossible, he said. But you are wrong. They describe the inevitable. Put a human in an impossible situation, and they will find a way to make it possible. He looked down at Private Chen, who was staring at him with wide eyes. Your ancestors were not telling stories about imaginary heroes, young human. They were leaving instructions for their descendants. The myths are not fantasies about what humans could be. They are reminders of what humans are. The general's words hung in the air like a challenge to everything the aliens thought they knew about the small, weak species that had joined their coalition. The transformation in the cantina was immediate and profound. The aliens who had been laughing at human myths now looked at Private Chen with something approaching reverence. The young Marine sat straighter in his chair, no longer the embarrassed recruit trying to defend stories he barely understood. Commander HFY was the first to break the silence. His mandibles clicked nervously as he addressed Chen. Private, he said carefully. I owe you an apology. We all do. Chen looked around the table at faces that had been mocking him minutes before. Now they watched him with the cautious respect normally reserved for unexploded ordnance. I do not understand, Chen said. I am just a regular human. I have not done any of these things the General described. Have you not? General Corvallis asked. He remained standing, his massive frame casting shadows across the table. Tell me about your training scores, Private. Chen flushed red. They were adequate. Adequate, Corvallis repeated. What was your score on the impossible scenario test? The aliens exchanged glances. The impossible scenario test was given to all coalition recruits. It presented situations with no correct solution, designed to see how soldiers reacted to certain defeat. I passed, Chen said quietly. You did more than pass, Corvallis said. I have access to training records. You achieved the third highest score in your class. Do you know what you did? Chen shook his head. The scenario was a hostage situation. 50 civilians trapped in a building with 20 armed terrorists. All entry points were covered. Any assault would result in civilian casualties. The correct response was to call for specialized units and wait. That is what I did, Chen said. No, Corvallis corrected. You called for specialized units, but you did not wait. While the computer was calculating response times, you noticed that the building's fire suppression system could be triggered remotely. You flooded the building with foam, creating confusion among the terrorists, then guided the civilians to safety through the maintenance tunnels. Vexthal's colors shifted to a mazed yellow. The computer did not account for the fire suppression system. The computer assumed no one would think to use building systems as tactical assets, Corvallis explained. It was programmed by military minds that think in terms of weapons and soldiers. It never occurred to the programmers that someone would turn a safety system into a rescue tool. He looked back at Chen. That is what humans do, Private. You see solutions where others see only problems. You think of possibilities that never occur to other species. Corthine leaned forward, her gill slits fluttering with excitement. General, I would like to request transfer to a unit with more human personnel. As would I, added Zethar. If humans can achieve what you described, then fighting alongside them would be an honor. Silvara nodded eagerly. My combat effectiveness would improve significantly with human tactical support. Other aliens throughout the cantina began expressing similar interests. The mood had shifted from mockery to genuine curiosity about human capabilities. Wait, HFY said suddenly. General, if humans are so capable, why do they not know this themselves? Why was Private Chen unable to defend his own species' legends? Corvallis smiled for the first time since he had begun speaking. It was not a pleasant expression. That, he said, is perhaps the most remarkable thing about humans. They perform miracles and call them routine. They achieve the impossible and consider it normal. He gestured toward Chen. This young Marine thinks his training scores were merely adequate because he compares himself to other humans. He has no concept of how extraordinary his performance was by coalition standards. But why? Asked Vexthal. Why do humans not recognize their own abilities? Because, Corvallis explained, humans define normal by what humans do. If a human can accomplish something, then by definition it must be possible. They assume that if they can do it, anyone can do it. He paused, letting this sink in. Other species celebrate their limitations. Humans ignore theirs. A Xanthari warrior boasts about lifting 10 times his body weight. A human who lifts 10 times his body weight assumes he is not trying hard enough. HFY's compound eyes were wide with realization. They do not understand that they are exceptional. Exactly, Corvallis confirmed. Humans have spent their entire evolution solving impossible problems. To them, impossible is just another word for needs more work. Chen looked confused. But we are not that different from other species. We have the same basic biology, the same intelligence levels. Do you? Corvallis challenged. Tell me, Private, what is the deadliest predator on your homeworld? That depends on the environment, Chen replied automatically. In the ocean, probably great white sharks. On land, maybe polar bears or tigers. In terms of disease transmission, mosquitoes kill more humans than any other creature. The aliens stared at him. You have predators that hunt you in multiple environments? Corthine asked in disbelief. And you survived? Added Zethar. Chen looked puzzled. Well, yes. Humans learn to avoid dangerous areas, build shelters, use tools and weapons. My homeworld, Vexthal said slowly, has one apex predator. My species spent 10,000 years learning to hide from it. We achieved spaceflight specifically to escape our homeworld. Mine too, admitted Silvara. We developed our crystalline forms as armor against our world's single deadly threat. HFY clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Earth has multiple apex predators, environmental hazards, diseases, and natural disasters. And humans not only survived but thrived? We adapted, Chen said simply. You adapted, Corvanus repeated. Other species evolve over millions of years to fit their environment. Humans change their environment to fit them. You did not develop armor or natural weapons. You built tools. You did not evolve to fly. You built machines that could fly. He gestured broadly. Do you understand what you are, Private Chen? You are a member of the only species in known space that looks at an impossible problem and says, I will make this possible. The cantina erupted in conversation as aliens began discussing the implications of what they had learned. Several approached Chen directly, asking questions about human training methods, tactical thinking, and problem-solving approaches, but General Corvanus was not finished. He raised one massive hand and silence fell again. There is something else you should know, he said, his voice growing serious. I have told you about the human myths that have proven true. I have shown you the connections between your legends and your reality. He paused, his ancient eyes fixed on Chen. But I have not told you about the myths that remain classified, the stories that are too dangerous for general knowledge, the legends that describe capabilities so far beyond normal parameters that even Coalition Command refuses to believe they are real. A chill ran through the cantina. What do you mean? Chen asked quietly. Corvanus leaned down until his face was level with the young Marines. I mean that the stories your people tell about gods and monsters are the gentle versions, Private. The real truth about what humans accomplished before they reached the stars is locked away in files that require clearance levels most Coalition officers will never achieve. He straightened up, his expression grim. Your myths are not exaggerations of human capability. They are understatements. And that more than anything else is why the Coalition values humanity so highly. The silence that followed was absolute. In the space of one conversation, everything the aliens thought they knew about humans had been turned upside down. And somewhere in the back of their minds, a new thought was forming. If human myths were actually memories, and if the myths they knew were the gentle versions, then what truths were still hidden? What had humans really done in the darkness between the stars?